Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Adventure Within podcast. This is Heather Fritz, and I'm here today with Paola Cruz. Paola Cruz is a 850-hour E-RYT Hatha-Vinyasa yoga and cross traditions meditation guide with nearly 17 years of experience in the field. Paula is also certified in mindfulness therapy, pre and post natal yoga, Mudra Yoga, Yoga Nidra, Tibetan sound healing, and Om chanting. All of her trainings have been completed in the world's heart of yoga, in India, and in traditional ashrams. Her primary focus is helping her students to create for themselves a sustainably joyful life through right habits, understanding the workings of mind and our energy body. Paula follows the path of Bhakti, Kriya, and Hatha Yoga in her own life and spends her free time visiting and studying at ashrams and spiritual centers. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Adventure Within channel. My name is Heather, and this is Paola Cruz. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather. Thanks for having me here today.
I'm so excited that you're here. You are fabulous. I was reading through your bio and everything, and you have so many amazing certifications and trainings. I'm like, oh, you are so accomplished. I'm so excited for this interview. All right. Are you ready?
So, yeah.
All right. All right. Most people that I've encountered, because I'm a certified yoga teacher and meditation teacher and clairvoyant, a lot of people I've encountered usually start in yoga and then move into spirituality. And then some people start in spirituality and move into yoga. And I'm curious what that journey looked like for you. Like, what was your path? How did you get on this spiritual path of healing and awakening?
So, looking back into my life, actually, I was born to a very spiritual family. I was born and raised in Honduras. My parents are still in Honduras. I live in New York City now, but when I was very young, I some of my favorite memories as a child were my dad came to read the Bible to my sisters and I before going to sleep. And he actually read it with a lot of devotion and love and conviction. And I often cried hearing him read it, even though maybe I didn't fully understand what the Psalms were about or what he read to us um, really meant. But something touched me. Maybe it was his devotion looking back into it. And then he prayed with us as well. And he actually prayed with his heart. So looking back into my life, I was born in a family of bhaktas, which means devotion and yoga, except that
Oh.
Jesus and the Catholic path.
Mhm.
So growing up, I started to ask lots of questions. For
Mm.
me, spirituality was always something really part of my life. And some of these questions he couldn't answer, and no one could really answer, uh,
Mm.
such as, one of the things I remembered that bothered me the most was how come there's only one life? Like, that's not possible. Otherwise,
Mm.
people would be born the same, but they're not. Even in babies, you can see that they have different personalities. So,
Right.
where do these different traits come from? This type of questions I was asked.
Yeah.
It didn't seem fair that according to some of the teachings, uh, people from other countries were condemned because they weren't following the one path or the one God. And to me,
Mm-hmm.
this didn't add up.
Mm.
So I never blamed it on God or any of the persons on the Bible, definitely not on Jesus. I just felt like they didn't understand. The people who were explaining it perhaps just saw it from a different way that was not what resonated with me.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Right. They were interpreting it in a different way, or they were teaching it in a different way that just didn't quite resonate. Got it. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So, in that sense, I guess I drifted away from Catholic teachings
Mm.
because just didn't add up.
Mm-hmm.
And after, when I was 18, my parents sent me to university here in the States. So I was lucky to study abroad here in the US. And on my sophomore year, I was looking for electives, and one of the electives was yoga. I hadn't really heard much about yoga. This was 2008 at the time. Instagram wasn't popular,
Wasn't a
or
thing.
I don't think
Yeah.
it was, you know. And so it wasn't something, people really spoke about. And I had not really heard of it in Honduras. No one was teaching yoga publicly when I was a child there.
Mm,
It was something I had to do. So I took this class, and the very first time it felt so natural to me. And so my journey into this path of yoga started then.
that's awesome. It's funny how college just seems to be the doorway for most of us to find ourselves. That's fabulous. And then I guess when did the was it just immediate that you like dove in hard and like went into like spirituality, or was it kind of a more gradual thing after the physical practice?
No, it was definitely a very gradual thing. So I took my first class, 2008. It was a Vinyasa class, which is a postures class. But our teacher had been to India, and he was in the spiritual path already. So
Mm,
throughout the class, he kept quoting the Bhagavad Gita, and he said some beautiful things. And I really resonated with all of it. But at first, it was just something that I did. It was part of my calendar, let's say.
hmm.
I was taking yoga classes once or twice a week. After that university class ended, I signed up to a studio that was just outside of the university. So in the beginning, it was more of that part of my schedule.
Yeah, yeah. I think mine started out that way as well. I was like, this is just kind of a cool thing I do that makes me feel good, you know. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
that's how it was in the beginning. And then after I graduated, I studied in Georgia. I moved to New York City, and I lived in the East Village. Have you been to the East Village here in New
I
York?
I have not. I've only been to Manhattan on the island and then New Jersey.
Village is a neighborhood in Manhattan.
Okay, I yeah, sorry. Obviously, I don't know. I don't know it very well. I hit the tourist spots. I'm boring.
Well, East Village is quite eclectic, and there were so many different yoga studios, which opened the door to learning a little bit more deeply about yoga because they were all teaching different things.
Ah.
So during that time here in New York, I started to take, more and more yoga classes. It became increasingly more important in my life.
Mm.
Working in jewelry, I had a really fun young New York life, like whatever young people think of New York.
That's
That's
fab.
probably very similar to what I was doing when I was in my early 20s. And at the same time, I wasn't fulfilling, and I never had the sense that working in jewelry was what I wanted to do my whole life. So
Mm.
I began to have anxiety, which I had
Mm.
never experienced in the past.
Mm.
And at one point around 2012, I started to have panic attacks. So I don't
Mm.
know if you experienced a panic attack, but
Hmm.
um, it's quite horrible.
It's quite excruciating, yeah. I've only had one, and yeah, it was bad. After that, if I felt one coming on, I'm like, oh God, please no. And I did like everything to like yeah, yeah. So even with like so you were deep into yoga, it was becoming really more important, and then you started having anxiety and panic attacks. Do you feel like that was because you knew you weren't really living your purpose and you felt kind of lost? Or what do you feel that that was kind of like looking back, like what do you think was kind of causing that?
Well, yes, definitely the sense of purpose wasn't there, but I was not diving into the depths of what yoga really is. I was still just focusing on the asana, which
Hmm.
is the outer kosha, or the outermost sheath of our
Hmm.
body. The
Hmm.
physical body was tapped into. And, the asanas work through other levels too, energetic, but
Mm.
the spiritual part of yoga wasn't there yet for me. So after these panic attacks, at one point, I asked my parents, this is happening. What do you think I should do? And they're doctors. So they suggested at the time to go to a psychologist and maybe take medicine. But I just knew that wasn't the answer for me. And I had
Hmm.
to deal with it through my own mind. So shortly after, maybe 2 weeks later, during one of my yoga classes, I overheard the teacher speaking with a student, and the student was sharing a similar experience. So I walked up, and I was involved in the conversation, and the teacher just very nicely invited us to a private meditation class with him and pranayam, which is a yogic breathwork. It
Hmm.
was the very first time I meditated or I practiced pranayama, and it was a long session. I remember it being over an hour, and to me, it felt natural. That one first time it just felt natural.
Mm.
And I knew that was the way. That was the answer to my prayer. And so my meditation journey started then in 2012. And since then, it's been a long journey to arrive at where I am now, which now I feel like I've found my home in terms of spirituality. But meditation was definitely that big door that opened for me.
I love that. That's awesome. And it does seem like that's kind of the thing in society now and just worldwide, like not even just here in the US, but yeah, it's like, oh, you're experiencing anxiety, take medication. Oh, you're struggling to focus, take medication, instead of like looking at what's happening in spirit. Because when things are happening on the outside of the body, like that means something's happening on the spiritual level, whether that's like an ego death or the spirit's like, hey, pay attention to this thing. Like, so I'm gonna make things happen to your physical body, so you pay attention. So yeah, no, I love that. And I've heard so many, even myself, like have had experiences like that where it's like something physical comes up and it's like, oh, okay, I need to shift something here. And a lot of people end up going the medical route and it's like, oh, guys, come on, turn to spirit, come on. Yeah, so I love that. Um, So speaking of like yoga, and you talked about like how it was just part of your calendar and just kind of this thing you did that was kind of cool and fun and you felt good in your body. Have you noticed, at least I've noticed, I don't know if you have, or at least this is my perception anyway, not to like project, but like I feel like yoga has almost become this more shallow thing because it did start in India and it was a more spiritual thing. It was like a physical preparation so that your body would sit in meditation longer and you could go deeper. And I feel like in today's society and world, in the world of Instagram and things, it's kind of become more shallow. What is your view on that, and what have you noticed in your own experience with being a teacher and with practicing and in your long, beautiful journey?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'd like to give a little bit of context for listeners who maybe not are not so familiar with yoga.
Hmm, absolutely, please do.
Originally, at least from what we know from the ancient texts, there were really only five postures, and they were all seated postures
Mm,
for the purpose of meditation, right? Just to allow the body to sit still during meditation. So there were only five asana, and asana means seat. And that was the way it was. It was just always focused more on the connection with the self and the supreme self, or the self and God, whatever you want to call it.
mhm,
And then through time, things shifted. Originally, the teachings were just shared from guru to disciple, and they were very difficult to access for regular people. So, in that sense, there was an opening of yoga to be accessed to the public, and then that was mainly during the classical yoga period. So, to make a lot of the teachings available, more systematized yoga practices were formed. And that also gave way to more and more asana postures. And a lot of these postures were given through the understanding of nature. That's why we have so many postures that have different animal names, because they were observing the animals in nature. And there is a science behind it too, the flow of energy, like you're saying. A lot of somatic healing is happening through the yoga asana. But it was, that's how it evolved. And then the Hatha Yoga sequence was created by Krishnamacharya in Mysore. And from that, Ashtanga Yoga, and then the Ashtanga from Pattabhi Jois was created, and Iyengar, and all these other different sequences. So that was very recent, actually.
mhm.
Um,
Everybody was putting their own spin on it at that point.
and it's great. It's
Oh
great.
yeah. Oh no, beautiful. No, I love it. It's just like with religion. Like you started out with like this old Roman like religion and then it spread into Catholicism and Methodist and Baptist. So it's a similar-ish thing.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, you can view it as shallow now that, a lot of people in the West focus just on asana. To
Hmm.
me, it's deeper than that. Yes, there is a big emphasis on the postures. And what happens is that since that is one of the most visual aspects of the path,
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the only things you can really capture with your camera. And since we live in a world of a lot of images and videos, social media, that's what gets the most attention. But in that, so much is lost in this in this process because that's just such a small piece of what the depths of yoga really are. The teachings of yoga, like I'm sure are really just to focus on returning to that state of wholeness. That's ultimately what yoga wants to tap into, is to answer the question of who am I? And it's the essential question for a human. And that's how we really find our healing, is through understanding more deeply who it is that we are. And aside from asana, there are so many other paths as well. The
Oh,
path that,
yeah.
for me, my path is the path of Bhakti yoga. But that doesn't mean I don't practice other yogas. And Bhakti means devotion. So arriving at the understanding of the self and the connection to the divine through the path of devotion. But we can't just exclusively practice one path, because we are living in the space of activity, and so in the actions, then we're doing karma yoga, which is the yoga of doing things selflessly. No matter what it is that you're doing, the intention is selfless, even if it's your own breath, breathing as, a form of just being grateful for your life or your breath, offering that breath to the divine. That's the path of karma yoga,
Mm.
selflessly serving as well.
I love that.
The path of Raja Yoga, which I still practice too. It's the path of ultimately achieving the understanding of the self through meditation, and so on. But that's, yeah, unfortunately, the focus on the asana kind of clouds the depths of what yoga really is and the potential that it has for people to use it and heal in their own paths and journeys.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. And then you hit such a good point with that like because we are such a visual we are visual creatures and with the world of social media and shortened attention spans the doom scroll. Yeah, the visual is just kind of the thing that captures, and that is so true. Because there's so many times when I'm doing like psychic readings or healings, I'm like, oh, I wish I could just take a snapshot of what I see in my mind and just give it to you because what I'm seeing is so beautiful and so profound. And it's like, God, I just want to take a snapshot and give it to the person I'm reading because this is fantastic. And I can't do that. When they make a technology for that, I think, spirituality will finally like do its thing. But um, no, I love that. That's so profound and beautiful. And yeah, there's so many different paths to finding wholeness and oneness and to enlightenment. There's so many, and really that's part of us all being individualistic in a way, is all finding our own paths. There's a reason everyone goes a different path. Um, yeah. No, I love that. Beautiful.
Ultimately, if I can add to that,
Yeah.
I see it is not that we hop on the journey for ourselves. Really, what I've learned is that the only way to achieve, let's say, world peace, which is one of the collective goals, is
Hmm.
to work on yourself. But that doesn't mean that we're doing it for a selfish reason.
Mm,
Working on ourselves is the only way to solve the collective issue of war, for example, and achieving peace.
right.
Because whenever we are in a higher space of awareness, then all of our relationships will have a different understanding. We'll react to them, actually we'll respond to them and not react, and so on. And then it has this kind of domino effect. So if everybody was focusing on understanding who they truly are and hopping on the journey of healing, then that would just have a collective impact. And that's really how we can, achieve peace in the world. So the journey is not just for ourselves, but it's really for everyone else, for all beings.
Absolutely. Oh, beautifully put. That was beautifully put. Oh, thank you for sharing that. I love that so much. Because it is true, um, like why do you get defensive or why do you argue with people or why do you feel the need to fight with people? It's because there's something within you. Like a lot of people want to blame outwardly, but it's like, no, it's just there's something within you that's not jiving quite right. And you just kind of, or it, not quite right. It's probably not. I'm not, I don't speak as pretty as you, but but yeah, it's like something, there's something within yourself that's trying to be healed and come to the surface. And yeah, if we like take a step back and like work on that, then, war would be just not a thing if we all did that. Oh, you put it so beautifully. Mwah, love it. Um, so you said that your father was, read the Bible to you and prayed with you and was very devoted, which is so beautiful. And I love that. That's so wonderful. When you started your spiritual pursuits, like diving deeper and going more into meditation and going more the spiritual path, and it was speaking to you, did you find that you had really great support in doing that with your family, or were they a little more hesitant? What was that like?
I think, let's see. So again, let's go back to university years. So I started yoga at the same
Hmm.
time I began to be more interested in learning about just different religions. And so I took some philosophy classes and I loved it. I loved it. I wanted to do a double major in philosophy. So I asked my parents, they were paying for my school, and they said no. Because they thought, what are you going to do with philosophy? We're sending you to the US and
Mm-hmm.
you're doctors. So their point of view at that time was very closed off in that sense. So I think
Yeah.
perhaps the most resistance I really encountered from them is they said no to that.
Hmm.
Um, and aside from that, I didn't really start teaching yoga until 2018. So I started practicing 2008. Then 10 years went by. In those 10 years, I moved to New York. I was practicing jewelry, started meditating. Then one day I just decided, okay, jewelry is not my thing. I'm just going to go travel around the world. And that
Love
extended
that.
6 years. So I spent around 6 years traveling all over. During that time, I can't say my parents were not supportive. They were. They were supporting me also financially, although they weren't happy with with ending my travels everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then in 2018, that year, I had a few very deep experiences where it was very clear to me that my purpose in life is to share yoga. So I went back to India to get certified. And at that point, yoga was a familiar word for my mom and my dad and my sisters because I had already been practicing for 10 years. And once I got back, I wanted to start teaching. And they were supportive, but in the sense that they weren't, I guess, uh, speaking negatively about it to me. They
Mm-hmm.
never came to any classes,
Mm-hmm.
never been to any classes, for example. But if I needed them to give me a ride somewhere, they would take me. And I think what helped is that they witnessed the consistency of my practice and also of me teaching.
Right. It wasn't like a flippant, like, oh, I'm just doing this for like, for giggles. Yeah, you were serious about it. Yeah.
And so they started to respect it more when they saw how serious I was about it. And my studying didn't stop there. I love studying too. I'm also a student, always a student too. And so they've seen this and they've been supportive in that sense. They have questioned, what yoga is and what it's teaching me, if there's different gods, or, they started asking more questions then. But the more I've understood the spiritual aspect of yoga, the better able I've been able to communicate those teachings with my parents, to the point that now they're both coming to meet my spiritual teacher, Paramahamsa Vishwananda, next month, actually, in Miami, in about 1 month. Yeah, so it's been a journey. And Yes, I've had lots of fights, arguments with them throughout the time.
Same.
They've also witnessed, the transformation that hasn't been overnight. It's been happening since 2008, really, and more so the last 2 years since I met my spiritual teacher.
Mhm.
They've seen how different I am now,
How at
and
peace, more at peace. Yeah, yeah.
peace, and just lifestyle wise, much healthier lifestyle, more focused, grounded. I don't know. They
All
can,
the things.
yeah, they can probably would tell you, they'd be able to tell you more from their perspective, but they've witnessed a transformation. So they're very supportive now. I mean, they're coming to meet my spiritual teacher. That's the biggest support I could get from them.
That's wonderful. Oh, that's awesome. I love that. I'm so happy for you that like they how do I put this? That they weren't like fully like in it, but they still stuck by you. That means a lot. Um I was terrified to tell my parents about like my spiritual practices, like yoga, they were fine with. My mom took some yoga classes and she's like, "Oh, the breathing and the moving, like it feels good." And it was just kind of again just the asana, just the physical. I just realized this is nuts looking. But no, but getting more into the spiritual stuff, like with being Catholic, there's of course the Catholic like guilt and the purgatory and the heavy shame and things. At least with my family and my Catholic upbringing, there was a lot of that involved. And yeah, trying to like explain that like spirit's not like that. It's like it's a lot more love, Mom, I promise. So yeah, no, that's beautiful that they're kind of they're open to it and they're asking questions and they're coming around with it. That's awesome. I love that for you. Like that's congratulations. Love that. That's fantastic. I love that you got support through your journey. That's beautiful.
And now the conversations are flowing quite nicely because I've also studied being deep in the path of yoga. I've also studied other traditions and how God is perceived in other paths. So
Mm,
I've done like the Course of Miracles, for instance, which is a Christian course. I've done Kabbalah. I've studied more of Judaism, Sikhism,
hmm
and yeah. And so what I've learned and from my experience as well is, like you're saying, God is really just love.
hmm
Love and God are synonymous words, and that's
mm
one thing that I truly I felt, not in fullness, but I felt God is love.
mm.
And so in that sense, I'm more connected now to Jesus, for instance, than I ever was,
Same.
because light is the same light of love. So in that sense, there's also that bridge that has connected my parents' viewpoint and mine, for instance, and they know how much I love Jesus now too. I take them to church now when I'm home. And maybe they don't fully understand how it works, how I'm so also loving to Jesus when I'm also in the path of Bhakti Yoga and Vaishnavism. But it seems like they're happy.
Right, right. You try to like change your words to like where it makes sense to them. At least I do. Like I say source as synonymous with God and higher self as like that piece of God that is ours. Because God is within all of us. Like we all are one. We all come from source. We are all from source. And so trying to explain that like because the divine and God and Jesus and it's like, oh, the Holy Spirit's within all of us. I'm like, that's the same thing, like it's just trying to make those correlations. So yeah. That's just so beautiful. And even just in talking spirituality with just the public, like not even just our families, but
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
the public, just being able to bridge that gap is so important and beautiful. Um, all right, you have so many certifications and beautiful trainings, and you were saying like which ones you predominantly practice. Do you want to kind of elaborate on your favorite and the one that speaks to you the most, and kind of like why that like really is your thing?
Um, my favorite my favorite I guess, training is actually a training you can't really get. You can't really take a course on it and just get certified on it. And it's the path of Bhakti Yoga. And yes, you can study, the philosophy behind it and the meditations and etc. But Bhakti Yoga is a path of devotion, like I said in the beginning. And
Hmm.
that's what I have felt has really provided me with full purpose and a sense of more clarity. And um it's a it's expanded so much light on my life and the understanding of all other yogas as well, because ultimately to me yoga is that connection with the soul and the super soul, or the self and God. And again, you can have your own conception of God, it doesn't matter. It's We all come from the same source, like you were saying.
Hmm.
And so the path of Bhakti Yoga and the teachings of my guru, Paramahamsa Vishwananda, he focuses so much on just learning to love, but it's this love that we don't know as uh, in our lives, as long as we are dealing with material world and with material relationships. And by that, I mean, even with our families or partners or children or friends, because that is ultimately quite conditioned. We say that we love our partners unconditionally, or moms to children's, or vice versa, that there's this unconditional love. But if your child was your neighbor's child, would you love them the same? And the
Mm.
answer is no for most people,
Mm.
everyone I've met at least. So there is that condition that it is mine.
Mm. Mm.
The love that we try to cultivate in Bhakti Yoga is beyond all of that. It's actually just a love that has really no conditions, that is the source of all love. It's this fountain of water that never ends. And that's actually how I felt when I first walked into the ashram or monastery for Bhakti Marga. And that there's this source of endless love, this fountain of love that never ends. And it's
Mm.
never ending because we are tapping into something that is not limited. We're tapping into that creative energy that is beyond the material world. So that is my favorite yoga.
Girl, you're gonna make me cry. Wow. That is so profound. Oh, so true. Because like so many people, they're like, "Oh, I don't like kids. I only like my kid." Or whatever. Or whatever. And yeah, it's just wow, mind blown. Love that. I mean, I knew that already, but just the beautiful way that you put it, I'm like, what? You're gonna make me cry. Oh, that's beautiful. So beautiful.
Yeah, it's been the biggest gift in my life.
Yeah. Um, just to pivot off that a little, have you ever run into a time as you were pursuing your spiritual pursuits, like, okay, this speaks to me, this makes my soul sing? Have you ever hit the proverbial wall where, like your practice just kind of seemed like you kind of hit a wall with it, or you weren't sure where to go from there, or you just hit a lot of uncertainty or invalidation, or something in your life just made you question it? And if that's ever happened, what made you kind of turn back to it?
Yeah, I had a really rough, maybe 14, 15-month period, which happened between 2022 and 23. So not that long ago.
Mm-hmm. I think
Um,
everybody was going through some things during the pandemic. Sorry, keep going.
yeah, it was, yeah, right after the pandemic, but it didn't feel like it was directly correlated to that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it's definitely linked in some way, but I call it the period of desert. Like I was going through the desert.
Mm-hmm.
On the outside, everything was great. I already had met my now husband. At the time we were dating. It was, it was nice. It was great. We were traveling around the world. We were living 1 month here, 1 month there. We had a base here in New York. Our families were healthy and happy and, working. Everything was great. But internally, I couldn't explain it aside from visualize yourself just being in the hottest desert you can imagine with no shade, no water. That's kind of how it felt.
Just uncomfortable.
Not even just uncomfortable, just this sense of emptiness.
Mm, mm-hmm.
As paired with, I started to have a lot of anxiety again at that point,
Mm.
worse than I've ever had.
Ooh. Okay.
And yeah, just in that same period of time, I was shifting to where I wasn't attracted to anything that was not what we would call spiritual. And that means, spiritual music, only listening to spiritual or movies, watching spiritual movies, reading spiritual things, all these things that in the end, it's something I had to transcend as well, because just believing that spirituality is only found in a certain amount of things is completely wrong. Actually, life itself is a creation of God.
Oh yeah, there's something spiritual in literally everything. Like even heavy metal music. There's something spiritual there. Anyway, continue. Yes, yes, keep going.
Yeah, so in this period of time, that was happening as well. My husband had no clue what was going on. He, at that point, hadn't really jumped into spirituality. So it was just a crazy time. I read about it in books afterwards, and some books call it the dark night of the soul. Some
Mm,
books call it, the Kundalini awakening. Other
mhm,
experiences were happening as well. Like some nights I woke up in the middle of the night and I just needed to be in child pose. Some nights I woke up and I just wanted to cry.
mhm.
Some days I just wanted to dance. It was
Yeah.
around all these different emotions, and it feels like that period of time was necessary for me, because at that same moment when I just did not know what was happening to me, and I just felt like I was missing something really important. So I started to send out prayers to, at that point I called it the universe and the divine. I still
Mm,
call it. And then the prayers were, please give me some clarity, please um, give me strength.
mhm,
And then I began to meet teachers from the path of Bhakti Yoga specifically. And they were teaching me other practices that I hadn't learned about before in any of my trainings uh, in depth, because they had been mentioned, but I hadn't actually practiced them in depth, like Japa Yoga, for instance, which is a repetition of a certain mantra.
mm.
Um, I
I
started
struggle with that one too.
I started to listen to kirtan, which is a specific music, spiritual music, where you praise the divine in different names. And it's a call and response type of music. Then I started to read the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the primordial texts in a lot of the yogic paths. Um, and things like this were feeling like I was receiving some water in the middle of the desert.
Mm,
That's actually the only water I felt during that period of time came from those things. And I ultimately, in that period of time, towards the end of that year and a half, let's say, I was going to travel with my husband somewhere. I don't remember if it was Las Vegas or we were going to Texas, but he had a work trip. And we were going to go together. I packed, we had our bags packed. Actually, we were just about to leave the door. He had called the Uber. And in that moment, when he opened the door to leave our apartment, I had this strong feeling that I had to stay in the house. And
mm,
it was so strong, I had to stay. So I told him, look, I don't know what's going on, but I know I can't go. I have to stay. And so we got into an argument. He, had been very patient with me all this year of these crazy things going on.
mhm,
And at the end, I just stayed because I had this strong feeling I had to stay. So he
mhm,
left, stayed. I laid down and I was crying for 30 minutes. And then I thought to myself, okay, well, there has to be a reason why I stayed. So I'm not just going to sit here and cry. Let me at least go meditate. So I looked up a few places that were nearby, and there was a sound bath happening 30 minutes, 3 blocks away from my apartment. So I said, okay, I've never been to this place. Let's go. So I went, and after the class, I met the owner of the studio, her name's Suzanne, and then I met two other friends. And these people have been pivotal in walking me, I guess, to my teacher now, because it was through that center that ultimately I met the Bhakti Marga community. And so that decision of staying here was really probably for that, just so I could meet my spiritual teacher ultimately through that experience, through that one class. And yeah, so during that period of the desert, all these things happened. I met these people. Ultimately, I saw the account of one of the Swamis online, the Swami Chidananda, and he had some beautiful videos on his Instagram. I noticed there was a different energy coming from his eyes that I hadn't felt from anyone else.
Mm,
And it is real, alive love.
mm,
We connected on Instagram. He told me about the monastery that's upstate. So I said, okay, well, I'll come visit. He was traveling, so he said, come in February. I'll be back then. So I went to the ashram by myself in February of 2024, so last year. And that year, I was initiated into an ancient practice called Kriya. You can read about it in Autobiography of a Yogi. That's one of the most famous yogi books on
mhm.
yoga.
It's on my shelf.
So yeah, he initiated me into Mahavatar Babaji's Kriya. It's called Atma Kriya Yoga. So it's adapted to the modern times. And after that experience, I had a little miracle happen.
Mm.
And once I walked into that ashram, like I said before, I knew I was home. And once I was initiated, a series of amazing, beautiful spiritual experiences came to me. And ultimately, my spiritual teacher came into my life, and I instantly knew he is my guru, and that this is the reason why I'm here, and
Yeah.
uh, the sense of fulfillment and purpose is there. So yeah, that's been the most challenging time in my life, that period of the desert. But at the same time,
It was what you
it's
needed.
what I needed to recognize that fountain of water that is the love.
Yes. And like in my I don't know if I want to say teachings or just the way I talk, I call that a growth period. Where the things that are no longer needed or the things that are distracting you from your true path start to fall away. Because the way you're describing it, I'm like, oh, that sounds so much like kind of like some people call it an ego death. I call
Right.
it a growth period. You call it, time in the desert. It really does just kind of feel like the worst time in life. You're like, everything's fine. Why do I hate everything? Or why is nothing working? Or why are the things I've always done that make me feel better not making me feel better? Like, what is happening? And then you finally get that glimpse of light and you look back, you're like, oh, I needed that to be able to have this. I needed those things to fall away, so I had space for this. Love it. Um, that I know it sounds crazy to be like, oh, your life fell apart. Yay! Or, so yeah, when I have students and they're like, oh, everything's falling apart in my life, I'm like, I know this sounds terrible, but yay. Like this is good. This is a good thing. Oh yeah, it's isn't it amazing? Just like how it can seem terrible, but it's actually like the best thing in the world.
Yeah. And it's quite logical as well. Like, the time when the light is most evident is when it's dark.
Girl, you speak so poetically. Like I couldn't I'm tell ugh. Are you writing a book? Because the way the way you speak is fabulous. Love it. I don't speak as pretty as you. Um, I guess in kind of like talking about how we've had our own growth periods and our own times of darkness. And since you've been, teaching and diving in, what is one topic or area of life that you notice that almost everybody or a majority of people struggle to like let go of or move forward from? Like what is like something that you're just noticing like a consistent thing in like a lot of your students or people around you?
You know, Sadly, I think people just lack enough motivation
Mm,
because they're just comfortable. even if someone is going through a rough period of time and they do make some steps, they are coming to yoga, they may be taking therapy, they may be,
Mm-hmm.
taking classes with a spiritual teacher. But many times people just get kind of comfortable. Maybe they start feeling better and they stay there.
They just get like this far and then yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I feel like that's a big wall that we can hit. And it's difficult to overcome that wall because really the only way to do it is either you push yourself, which is very hard to do.
Yeah, very, yeah.
You surround yourself with other spiritual friends, which have, who really want to go deeply.
Sorry, I have a fly.
Or you have someone who's really holding you accountable and
Mm,
who's really reminding you to keep going, keep going further.
right, not coddling you, but not like punishing you, just kind of being like, and push.
Back to what we were speaking about in the beginning, we live in the age of comfort and wanting to get results so quickly. So
If
that
it's
is,
not overnight, people are like, if you tell them like, hey, this is a journey, they're like, but I want the quick fix. Yeah. Oh. Hmm.
yeah. Yesterday we had an event with one of the Swamis, one of Swami Revatikanta. And during his satsang, he shared something that I'll share with you today. He said how years ago, our guru was giving a talk and he asked people, if you're thirsty, would you rather me give you a bottle of water if you're thirsty right now? Or if I take you to the source of the water? And he said to his surprise, most people raise their hand up for the bottle of water instead of the source of the water. And so he asked them why. If the source of the water, you can have water all the time. And they said, yeah, but it's not so convenient. I can just have the bottle of water right now,
Mm,
even though that finishes quickly. And I feel like we're
mm.
so used to just the life of convenience that we ourselves just limit our growth, our potential of growth. And until we face deep challenges or really go through these periods of growth or the desert or whatever you want to call it, it's
Mm.
very, very hard for us to really want to go deep. And I'd say that's what the challenge for most people is.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I struggle with that myself. Like, it's like, oh, I should probably like sit and meditate. Like, I can feel some energy in my body that's not mine. It doesn't feel good. I need to move this out. Like, yeah, I need to sit down and kick this out. But what do? I pick up my phone and I go on Instagram or Facebook and I start doom scrolling. I just distract myself because it's the quick thing. And so yeah, I'm telling on myself here, but yeah, like very it's the
Well,
convenient thing.
I mean, I also fall victim to that too
Mm,
sometimes, but I'm fortunate that I do have a circle of friends that are also, going on the spiritual path with the intention of really reaching the goal.
right, right. And it is very important to have community, but it's also important to have community that yeah, holds you accountable. Because with some groups, they how do I want to put this? They almost hold you back in a way. With some, at least I've noticed with some, not very often, but like they just kind of like all stay in the same lane, and they don't like push each other to go further. So they just all kind of sit in the same, like they reach a certain point and then they stay there. Uh, I guess an example of that would be like if it's like the same five ladies that go to the same yoga class every week on the same day at the same time, and that's as far as they go. They just go to the yoga class and they maybe go get lunch after or whatever, and that's their community, which is fabulous and beautiful. I'm not knocking that at all, but sometimes you need those I'm terrible with words today. You just need those disruptors, those energy disruptors. You need those people to just kind of push you a little bit. So it's important to have those disruptors in your community a little bit too. Not like destructive, but you know what I'm saying.
I think the other side of that is we just have to be really honest with ourselves and just ask ourselves, do I really want to change? Do I really want to try and find this continuous happiness? Or am I okay with, maybe not having full control over my mind and hitting the lows when the
Mm,
challenge come and hitting
yes.
the highs that end quickly. So just asking ourselves and answering honestly, what do I really want?
True, because there's some people who do not want to grow, because I've run into that as a teacher and as a spiritual guide. Like, um, they're not ready to be like I have to like really look at it and be like, are they ready to be pushed? Are they ready to move forward here? Or is this one of those things where like that's not their mock-up right now? That's not their thing right now. They're not wanting to move in this area. They're not ready for that now. Because I have been like in my own language, I've been spiritually whacked by people because I like stuck my nose where it didn't need to go.
Yeah, sometimes it can backfire if we, try to if we get too excited and share things that maybe people aren't ready to hear or want to receive, then sometimes it can create some walls. But the way
Mm,
that I see it too is even if it does create a wall in that moment, at the seed is there.
mm,
It can
true.
sprout at another point.
Right. It may be like years later, then they'll be like, oh, that's what they were talking about. But yeah, I've had that happen a few times with people. I've been like, oops, that wasn't my intention. Now they're not coming back to classes. Oh no. Like, I pushed too hard. Crap. No, this has been a beautiful interview. I love everything you've been saying. Please write a book because you speak so beautifully and you have so much wisdom in you and you're just such a beautiful soul and you're so sincere. And I just love this. I love talking to you. Do you have any remaining overarching message that you would love to share with our audience of just something that may have like come to you today or something that's been kind of resonating with you lately? And how can they get in touch with you so that they can, pursue knowing you and your journey?
Let's see. Well, one thing I've learned recently, just to really focus on this, is, especially if you're in the spiritual journey, is to not think of ourselves as spiritual beings, because that is a lot, you know. To really be a spiritual being, we have to fully transcend so many things: the mind, the ego, attachments.
Mhm.
So instead, just focus on trying to be a good human being.
Mm,
And how can we do that? By cultivating the vibrations that I call higher vibrations, everything from being kind to being humble to try to serve selflessly to being gentle, being loving, etc.
mm,
Of course, that doesn't mean that we don't have boundaries. The discernment should always be there, but just trying to focus on these higher vibrational emotions. And that by itself, just by doing that, we will begin to feel differently, because those things guide you to the divine energy, because that's just the nature of them.
mm,
So focus on being a good human being and not try to pressure yourself too much into you have to be one way or so on. Just do that. Be consistent. Consistency is super important. It's probably been one of the most important things in my life, to be consistent.
mm,
Uh, because you can
mhm.
really see results, but of course that goes hand in hand with patience.
Which I'm terrible at.
We don't like to hear.
No. I know it's like, that thing, Oh, no, that's beautiful.
And then you can get in touch with me through Instagram at, it's a bit complicated name, at Bhagavati Dasi, which is spelled BHAGAWATI.DASI. And yeah, and then if you're in New York City, join us at our big events coming up. One of them is on August 9th at Riverside Church. Paramahamsa Vishwananda, my spiritual teacher, will be there giving one-on-one blessings. We'll have lots of music, guest speakers,
Oh, that's beautiful.
food. It's historic building as well. And then in Miami, if you're there, come to the Faena Forum. uh, for the Heart of Devotion Samadhi Soul Ceremony, which will be amazing as well. Paramahamsa Vishwananda will be there too, and we'll have a big sound bath, a guided meditation. The venue itself is gorgeous. Yeah, and then if you're in New York City and you're curious for any classes, just send me a DM on Instagram.
Absolutely. I'll put all your links down in the comment section and in the description. So if y'all are curious and you want to check that stuff out, it's going to be down below. This has just been so beautiful. I could just talk to you all day, but we got other things we have to do. But thank you everybody for coming to listening in. And Paula, it's been such a beautiful time talking to you, and I think your message is going to really reach many. And it's such a beautiful message, and I feel very fortunate that I get to help it send, help it go out into the world. All right, everybody, we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.